Hi guys, Simon Palmer here from meetsimonpalmer.com. We've been talking for the last few days about intuition. So I've given you a couple of ways of using your intuition, and I've got one more for you. So just going to share this. Here we go. So the first one we spoke about was clearing garbage. That was Sonia Choquette, who was using the method of saying, my mind says, asking yourself those three things for each section. So my mind says, my mind says, my mind says, and then what your fears are. I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. And then my spirit says, my spirit says, my spirit says. And each one gives you a little bit more detail as to what your answer is going to be. And then we spoke about imaginary counsellors. And when you get sort of 4 to 10 people and you stick them in your imaginary boardroom, and I mentioned, I know Julia noticed, I mentioned Ronald Reagan, who might seem like a strange person to have in your boardroom, where he was in my boardroom, because I saw something when he was meeting Gorbachev in the sort of height of it wasn't the height of the Cold War, but when the arms race was going on in the 80s and stuff like that, and he was really, as you would expect an actor or a retired actor to be, he was really engaging, and he used all various techniques to just sort of calm the situation, and I'm sure that made a big difference to the energy in the world when that arms race was going on in the 80s. And Napoleon Hill would go on about his own boardroom of counsellors, imaginary counsellors, and they took on a life of their own, and obviously this was all going on in his head, but the counsellors would take on a life of their own, and they'd have relationships with each other, and he had Abraham Lincoln and Walt Disney and Thomas Edison in his boardroom of imaginary directors, of guides. And apparently Abe Lincoln used to turn up late for meetings, and consistently he was late, and somebody had a row with him, and they had a bust up, and one of them stormed out. So it gets a bit freaky weird, and these people take on a life of their own, essentially, but inside your head. So when you get good at it, that's how good it can get. So bear that in mind. And you want to think of any kind of character, really. I mean, Vishen Lakhiani, who I got this method from Mindvalley, he ended up having a giant panda as one of his guides. Or Leonardo da Vinci, and so you can have whoever you like in there. About 4 to 10 people. They're usually historical figures, because you want to ask them for advice, and they might know a little bit more. So actors, actresses, even if you want animals, but you can ask them all kinds of questions, whether it's business, love, health, fitness. If you want Bruce Lee answering questions on your health, then have Bruce Lee. But there's a third technique, which is called the Delta Doorway, and this is a more when you are sleeping. So when you're awake, your brain waves are in. You have beta brain waves going on, and these can all be measured very accurately these days. When you're meditating, resting, you have alpha brain waves. Theta is when you're in light sleep. And you know when you're sleepy, sort of very sleepy, and you get flashes of inspiration and your intuition, that's when you're in theta brainwaves. And they're the sort of things you get, and you forget to write them down, and you can't remember them later on. And then there's delta brainwaves, which is when you're asleep, unconscious. And so you want to tap into that, and there's a method of how you can use that. So during the daytime, imagine your problem, imagine the problem that you've got to make a decision on, And then reflect on it. So think about it, cause yourself a little pain. It sort of give it some emotion so that you're actually thinking about why it might be difficult or why it's a difficult decision to make. So you irritate it a little bit, and feel the pain. Do it with your eyes closed. I mean, you could go for a walk and do it. Watch where you're going. And then once you've done that, once you've irritated it, just forget about it until bedtime. And then at bedtime, you go and lie down. You go and call your guides, and you're probably going to have 2 or 3 close guides for this one. So you call them to you, and then what you do is you explain the problem, and you ask them to sympathise with you, and go and find the answer from a higher place, a higher intelligence. Whether, if you believe in God, then it might be God. If you believe in it coming from the energy in the universe, then from that place. But you ask you guys to go and sort it out from a higher knowledge or higher intelligence. And then, having done that, you let them go about their business. Open your eyes, have a glass of water, check the time, whatever, and then you go back and you meditate and you imagine the problem again. Imagine the decision you've got to make, but you imagine it's been resolved. It's all sorted out, and you've got the answer. And think about the end. You start with the end in mind. You think about not how it's going to get resolved, but the fact that it is just resolved. This is a method that was Jose Silva probably invented in the 60s, and he called it mental video. And then having resolved the problem, you then thank your guides and you go to sleep. So what happens then is it all gets sorted out, and you may not wake up and know the answer, but give it 72 hours and see if something changes. And often something alters, something changes a little bit in day-to-day activities, and you think, well, that's a bit odd. Where did that come from? So you give it 3 days. Don't freak out if it doesn't work. You do it again after 3 days, but don't do it every night, because it's a bit like, when the kids are in the car sitting in the back and go, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" You know you're going to get there, but you're being impatient. So give it a little bit of time. Give it the 3 days, and then if you haven't got your answer, do it again. And you can use this for big decisions. I mean, who to get married to, where you want to go on holiday, what about a new job, those sort of decisions you can use this method for. So the more you practice, the better you get at it. So don't forget, I'm getting better and better. So there's the 3 techniques. Use your intuition, use it wisely, just practice. That's practice. The more you practice, the better you get at it. And it's not practice makes perfect, because you might be practicing the wrong thing, but practice makes permanent. So if you practice the right thing, practice your intuition and listen to it. The more you listen to it, the better you get at it. So go for that. That's the message for today. Tomorrow evening, Brittany and I are hanging out. We're doing a webinar. We're going to talk about some mindset stuff. So if you've got any mindset questions, bring them along or send them to me. A bit mindset, and obviously Brittany, her speciality is tips, tricks, and insider secrets, particularly for home business owners. So if you want to find out some more about mindset, tips, tricks, and insider secrets, come and have a look at our webinar tomorrow night. And the link for that should be up soon. It will be meetsimonpalmer.com/webinar. Have a great, what day is it? Wednesday. Have a great Wednesday, and I will catch you on the next one.